During lunchtime, people chit-chat with each other as usual, just like any other day. And that changed when a student named Jose decided to throw an apple across the room as a joke. However, the principal saw it and confronted Jose about the incident. Instead of admitting to it, Jose denied throwing the apple. As a result, Jose ended up getting suspended for 5 days. This incident led to the creation of the Student Justice Panel. The representative didn't agree with Ms. Johnson's punishment and proposed alternative consequences for Jose to follow, such as apologizing to the janitor, cleaning up after lunch, and writing a reflection on his action. The principal agreed to the alternative consequences. Initially, Jose didn't comply with one of the consequences, but the SJP was able to convince him to complete them. And now, without any further ado, let's get into our presentation.
Good morning, teacher and all classmates. So we're all from group 9. We're going to present about the reading number 23. So the title is Make Students Part of the Solution, Not the Problem. So here are our members, and we have 5 members in total. And this is also our table of content. First one, we're going to talk about travel gardeners, core values, after the apple is thrown, and last but not least is the meeting. So now we can take a look at the first part, make students part of the solution, not the problem. So as currently situation, it's become the phenomenon problem all around the country that there are many problems arise in terms in the field of education. So talking about the classroom, about the environment of learning, our student always encountered the problem of not having a very good behavior in class, and this lead to the theory of travel gardeners that he tried to solve this problem. So I will begin with the story, an example in our textbook. So there was a group of students, they're sitting, and someone got an apple and throw at those people. So this is we can vividly see that it's the problem of a group of people that they have no respect. They do not respect other people. They do whatever reason just to make them feel satisfied. So within history, teacher often ask the authority often ask student to be suspended for 5 days, and this is one of the problem that no one hasn't solved it yet. It happens day by day. Like this discipline is not very well covered, and also as the traveler mentioned, this part of the this problem, like the incident, always lead to the creation of student justice panel. In short, we can call it as JP. So with this part, since there is no well-equipped disciplined student, always kind of involved in a lot of punishment in that. But he suggested that we should find another way, like a clear roadmap, in order to help students find a better way, which means that they are not the problem. They of course they have that kind of instinct to cause the problem in the classroom, but it's important to help them to teach them within a roadmap, within a very clear mechanism for them. Thank you. I will pass the floor to another speaker.
Now we will look at core values. So the core values that we are going to base on is from an example of a city school. So the city school is a public charter high school serving about 400 students in San Francisco. And the school core values include discipline, growth, community, justice, and respect. So they believe that everyone is responsible for the community, including students, teachers, and even educators. That's why they believe that students should have leadership roles which they could apply in the society when they grow up. So we have something called Student Justice Panel, which is a restorative justice model of school discipline to uphold the school's core value. So its members include 12 student leaders, one adult facilitator, community members involved, parents, and even student advocates who are optional to join. And the panel process include hearing proposing consequences aimed at restoration, deciding on a course of action. So teachers and students at the city school were the driving force behind the transition toward restorative justice. But there are some challenges in order to allow city school to function. Those challenges include constraints on time and resources. And the city school sought to establish a setting or a function in which students learn from errors rather than being suspended for doing something wrong. So meaning that schools should implement a new policy which they should allow students to learn from errors rather than suspending students for doing something wrong. So next we will discuss about after the apple is thrown.
So now I would like to continue from the previous part, continuing the story, and this part is called After the Apple is Thrown. So when the student justice panel finds out that Joe got suspended for 5 days just for throwing an apple, they get really upset, and 4 of them come to Mr. Travel Gardner in a mood of angry and urgent and saying that it's not fair. And after discussing it, Mr. Travel Gardner agreed with them and told them that they should talk to Principal Johnson about it first, because she's a reasonable and also wants what is best for the students. And Nicole wants to go right away, but Mr. Travel Gardner remind her that not to be disrespectful to her, and also suggest them to talk to Principal Johnson about Joe's situations first, and then try to focus on getting her to listen to them first. And after that, DeAndre, usually the quiet ones, steps up with a wise idea that they need a clear plan to talk to Principal Johnson calmly, explaining why they think Joe's suspension is unfair. And then they start to gather around to brainstorm with Mr. Travel Gardner, and he also offering some tips, but mostly letting them figure it out by themselves. And after that, they are very excited about their plan, but still unsure if the student justice panels, that we call it as SJP process really works, or if the principal will listen to them or not.
So in this case, student justice panels are more influential than suspensions. It can make a change in terms of discussions in order to restore justice when misconception occurs in disciplinary issues. Student justice panels provide the opportunity to restore relationships between teachers and students. And you can see teachers have the sense of empathy and understanding to educate students to take responsibility for their actions, like they punish the students when they have done something disrespectfully. Additionally, rather than discarding students from suspensions, the student justice panels proposes the ideas of a better punishment for students. This is the appropriate strategies to ensure that students become more disciplined, and this doesn't impact students' studying time. Rather than merely Addressing the immediate behavior, student justice panels dig into the fundamental factors that may have contributed to the misconduct. By understanding these root causes, panel's members can recommend appropriate interventions or support services to address the students' needs and prevent future incidents. So in conclusion, the Students' Justice Panel values responsibility and restorations for solving problems over suspensions. By engaging students in a constructive dialogue and addressing the underlying issues, they promote a positive school environment helpful to individual growth.
So now let's move on to the next point, which is the meeting. Two SJP representatives chosen by their classmates schedule a meeting with Ms. Johnson to talk about Jose's suspension. Ms. Johnson agrees and meet with the student and the assistant principal the next day. Afterward, the four students meet in a room to plan for the meeting. They agree that Jose's punishment doesn't match his mistake of throwing an apple. They think Jose should still be punished but not with a 5-day suspension, which would only make things worse. They decide to ask Ms. Johnson to let Jose come back to school after serving 1 day of his suspension with condition. First, he must apologize to the janitor. Second, clean the cafeteria for a week after lunch. Third, write a reflection on his action. They quickly agree on this consequence and feel good about their proposal. And the next day, the students meet with Ms. Johnson to explain why they think their proposed consequences for Jose are fairer and more effective than a suspension. Ms. Johnson agrees and Jose accepts the condition to avoid the suspension. However, after returning to school, Jose doesn't follow through with one of the consequences. This is a big moment for the SJP. They had decided that if a student didn't fulfill their consequences, they would go back to using punitive measures. But before it came to that, SJP students talked to Jose and convinced him to stick to the agreement. In the end, Jose completed his consequences, and this shows one of the great things about the SJP. Students take charge and hold each other accountable for their action. Instead of just following rules to avoid punishment, students uphold high expectations for each other because they believe in their voice and authority to make their school a better place. So move on to the reflection. Over the years, the Student Justice Panel has had success, but it's still tough to make a restorative discipline work in school. One big challenge is having enough resources like time and support. It's easier to just suspend a student than to have them change their behavior and thinking, which is what a restorative discipline aims to do. But it's crucial to tackle this because school discipline affects dropout rate and the risk of students ending up in the prison system. We owe it to students like Jose to invest in programs that help them grow instead of just punish them for a mistake like throwing apples. So that is the end of our presentation. Thank you for watching and paying attention to our presentation.